Hi, and welcome to the Parks and Recreation Board meeting today on March 9th, 2021. The time is 7:33, and I will pass the meeting to Doug Kraus, the chair.
Thank you, Monica, and good evening, everybody. Do a call to order. Tonight with us right now is Mr. Rob Labar, Kim Rock, Michael Brody, myself, Doug Kraus, and our Park and Rec director, Monica Tierney, on the line. Our first order of business is to approve the February 9th Park and Recreation Board meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
Second. Any comments? Hi, Dennis. Dennis Blasaki has also joined the meeting. Good evening, Dennis.
Hey, Dennis.
I'd like to congratulate him on his first motion on Park and Rec.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll send you a sticker. It says I made a motion. Any comments? If not, all in favor of approving the meeting minutes, say aye, raise your hand. All right, that passes. Monica, is John Love with us tonight to talk about the 3v3 tournament? You're on mute. Oh, there you go.
We'll have to check into the meeting room. Oh, there he is. Hey, John.
John, good to see you. How you been? Good.
Oh, John, you're on mute.
You can hold up signs.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm good. Sorry about that. I'm usually pretty good with that. I'm on about 9 WebExes a day. So you think I would?
If you just want to state your name, your address, and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then why you're here, and then we'll let you get going.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm John Love. I'm actually I live at 914 Edgewood Road, right here, right down the road from where your shop is at. With Falcons Elite, so a newly formed organization, and we're partnering with Lady Falcons Elite. So Lady Falcons Elite is the female version of us for kids in the Pennsbury School District to play basketball and get involved in other things. So we started, myself and Justin Baxter, Kurt Bergman, and Mike Higgins, guys, all Pennsbury guys who have coached at Pennsbury. We've had this idea kicked around for a while to start just a different version of youth basketball that's being offered in Pennsbury. And with that, and doing different things in the community. With the passing of Jack Pepper, we've known the Peppers forever. Coach Dalton, Coach Sean, Coach Brandon, in basketball, and have known the family for 25 plus years. So we just had the idea to do something, to keep Jack's name, just in the community, and do a fundraiser for American Cancer Society. So that's what the 3-on-3 is going to be on April 2nd and 3rd. We're going to offer it to actually grades 3 through 12. And we actually just had a meeting with the Peppers on Sunday via Zoom with Dalton in Italy still. And they actually, Dalton brought it up to us saying, hey, a lot of guys are asking if there's going to be an adult division. And we're like, oh boy, we know what that can turn into. We live in Nicolay, and we're like, okay, sure, why not? Because it's why not? Why not do that? So it's actually going to be 3 through 12, and then we'll have an adult division, and we'll have to, get some actual good referees to make sure nobody gets hurt doing that.
Yeah, it depends on what your definition of adult is, right? So.
Correct. Yeah. So there'll be a different registration for that. We'll have a different, parameters for what that means. But no, yeah, I talked to, connected with Monica last week, and she thought it'd be a good idea to come on here, just to introduce myself and tell us what we're all about. And we're looking to kind of grow this thing and not just do it. It's not just going to be a one thing where, and right now the world we're in is kind of tough, right? Because we can't even get in front of kids in middle schools and the grade schools. And I know Mike's son has been coming to our stuff, and we're just trying to build this, and eventually it's going to be an annual thing. And this year we're like, hey, the numbers we get are the numbers we get. And we're competing with baseball, and everybody's trying to get out of the house now. So we're just trying to reach as many people as possible and get in front of everybody, just to see what that weekend brings, and and go from there.
So, what would you like for us, right? Obviously, we're the Park and Rec Board, so we're just an advisory board. I mean, in terms of support, I believe, from what I understand, it's supposed to be indoors at one of the schools or churches.
Yeah, it's going to be at Charles Bain. All the middle schools, and the girls are going to be over at West. They're going to kind of be broken up. So we're abiding by all the the COVID protocols. We've been doing it for the last 2 months. We actually, this month will probably be the first month with the clinics that we're doing that we're allowing. We're going to allow one parent in to kind of get our feet wet with that. So we're going to be, abiding by all those things at Charles Bain, Penwood, and William Penn. And LFE, who is the girl version, our partner in this, is doing the same exact thing. They're actually running. They actually have games and whatnot that they've been doing for the last probably month and a half at the same schools, and no issues, and everybody's abiding by the rules and masked up and sanitizing, all that good stuff to make sure we can function in this world as we're in right now. So yeah, it will be inside. I know that's my wife's a teacher at Makefield, and she's very anxious over the next couple of weeks. So we're working through it, but yes, definitely it will be inside. And with weather, it's just tough.
Well, April's a tough tough month, but no, I mean, I think it's a great idea. Jack was, a great asset to the community. Outside of obviously basketball, obviously he was a member of the Park and Recs crew and did a lot for everybody here in the Lower Makefield community, even those that didn't know him behind the scenes. But I did spend a lot of time as being part of PAA. I'd always see him at the tournaments and at the fields doing his part. So I think this is a great effort and a way to give back. So again, Monica, I'm not sure if anybody else has any questions or, what else for us, if there's anything that we can do to help Monica in terms of making sure maybe socially it gets posted on the social media perspective from the Parks and Rec department. Any other thoughts or questions from the rest of the members?
Oh, one more. And if anybody wants to, that on those days, volunteer, just come by, feel free to reach out to me. Monica has my contact info. More than welcome. I know the Peppers have a number of people that they mentioned to us that they would want to be involved. So we're looking to make this a community thing. Anybody that was, direct knows Jack, knew Jack, the family or whatever. So we're looking to involve as many people as possible and grow this thing, having on an annual basis, but starting from day one, which will be April 2nd.
So Doug, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Monica. I was just going to say, I think he had said, or I thought I had read, maybe I'm making this up, but I signed my son up for the Jack Pepper, and I thought they had said there was raffles and stuff. I don't know if there's any sort of like pool guest passes or anything. We could donate a few of those that they could throw into one of their basket rafflers or something as a, I don't know if we have any ability to do anything like that, but that would be the only suggestion or thought.
Yeah, Mike, we're kicking it around, but it's just so tough right now because we're like, do we do an online raffle? And what's that going to look like? Does it, so
cool.
I'll keep you updated, but we're trying to figure that out. But, and again, it's having one person come in at a time. It's just and with,
it's challenging.
It's, there's just so many different, different things that we're having to kick around and just actually get people at the gym. So, but
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and we are too. I mean, at the other side, we're just accepting donations. I'm actually working with a couple companies that I know, and they're offering up some dollars just to help us out with some of the costs associated with it and being sponsors as well. I can pass that information along as well. And we're saying, hey, anything and everything. We're not, we have people, $10, $100, whatever it may be, and everything's going towards to complete donation anyway. Once there's everybody's getting a T-shirt, and it'll be cool to see the Jack Pepper Classic T-shirts all floating around the community once it's all said and done.
Doug, I think the biggest thing is if the board could help get the word out, or if the board wants to get involved, even volunteer. Any way that anybody wants to get involved, I'd be glad to do that. We will put it on social media if we haven't already. I believe it's already on our website. So we're going to help get the word out too. Jack's worked for us for 19 years. 19 years. It's a long time. So really excited to see this. He was a big part of our team. So thank you, John.
Hey, John, Monica, just make sure everybody has John's contact. I think we probably have it in an email, but just resend it.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody wants to volunteer, I guess John just contact you directly, right?
Yeah, reach out to me and we'll definitely put you to work in some shape or form. If you have any refereeing skills, let me know. We'll put you in the adult division.
I did rep in college back in the day.
There you go.
Is complaining about not getting calls count as refereeing skills, or?
Yes.
I'm good at that.
My alma mater lost the game last weekend because the ref called a couple of technicals that were inappropriate technical calls, because one player got fouled he made the basket and then said "and one," and the ref called a technical on him for saying "and one." So.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah, well,
I won't do that.
okay. All right.
No, so Michael, Dennis, anything else, Kim, from you guys? All good?
Nothing for me.
All right.
I think it's great, and I wish you guys a lot of luck.
Thank you.
John, I appreciate you coming on and letting us know about this great event. And we look forward to it being successful and seeing it happen on an annual basis.
Yeah, good luck, John.
In the
Good luck, John.
community. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Really do. Yeah. Thanks for the time.
All right, Monica, next up, I guess, will be Elizabeth Lawson to cover the volunteer plan presentation.
Yep. And I'll just get her started a little bit. We have 2 interns right now. I know the board has met everybody. Elizabeth, each one of our interns always gets an assignment, a due out that they have to do by the end of their program here. Elizabeth's a Temple student. She'll tell you more about herself in a few minutes here. But what she picked up as part of the CAPRA project that we've all been working on is the volunteer piece of things, which covers a number of things. But she'll cover everything. She has a slide deck she'll have to pull up. So if Elizabeth, you want to pull that up and get going.
Evening, Elizabeth. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So I'm going to be talking about the Lower Makefield Parks and Recreation Volunteer Management Guide, as we already have an excellent volunteer program and ways for the community to volunteer. We want to improve our standard to comply with the accreditation so that we can get the CAPRA accreditation. To begin, the big question is, why volunteers? Why do we need them? And how do they benefit us? So volunteers are the heart of Lower Makefield Township Parks and Recreation Department. With the help of our volunteers, we can make the impossible possible. Most importantly, our volunteer program allows us to support our vision of cultivating health, happiness, and community, which is what CAPRA is looking for. They want to make sure that the volunteers are benefiting us. So we have this guide, which you should all have. It's the management guide. This is done so that we can have a standard of operation so that we can have the best overall experience for the township as a whole. CAPRA would like us to have different categories and to make sure that we are complying with each category. The first is volunteer opportunities. We all know that not every opportunity is a one shoe fits all, and not each person can volunteer as the same commitment needs as another volunteer. To start off, we have an extended commitment volunteer, which is a volunteer who wants to spend numerous hours and time with the department. This is best fitting for someone that wants a huge responsibility. And some of these examples are serving on the board, the Park and Recreation Board, Special Events Board, the Lower Makefield Township Seniors, and Youth Committees. The next one would be a community service project, which is best fitting for an individual who would like to spend a few hours with no commitment necessary and just would like to volunteer on a new basis each time. Some of these examples are Tree Planting Day, Park Cleanup, Earth Day, and special event days. Our last type of volunteer opportunity is through our partners. As we have many partnerships, you would contact the specific organization directly and figure out how to get involved and what you need to do through our partners. Some of our partners include the Youth Athletic Organization, Neighbors in Need, Comcast Cares, Scouts, churches, and many others. The next piece that CAPRA would like us to comply with is volunteer recruitment, which is important so that we are actively recruiting new volunteers and we aren't just keeping the same percentage of volunteers. To do this, we will have up-to-date information to give out to any interested individual. We will also advertise our volunteer opportunities on our social media platforms, email, and our newsletter. Once a participant does volunteer with the department, they can choose to receive automatic emails sent to them with upcoming volunteer opportunities and how to get involved. This will help us to increase our volunteer percentage and keep improving our standard. The next pieces that CAPRA would like us to have is the selection, retention, and background check. Selection does vary for the commitment that the volunteer is wishing to volunteer with. For individuals interested in becoming an extended commitment volunteer, they are required to send a letter of interest highlighting the sector they wish to represent with a current resume to our township manager, Kurt Ferguson. Applicants must be residents or property owners of Lower Makefield. Once reviewed by the township manager, potential volunteers will be called for an in-person interview with the appropriate board before selection. Volunteers will be selected based off of their background, availability, and goals. As for someone who wants to volunteer for a community service project, the Parks and Recreation Department will set up a criteria for volunteering based on the work that is needed. Once volunteers commit to the project, the Park and Recreation Board and department will communicate with the group through email with relevant information that they may need. The next way we can comply with CAPRA is through retention. It is extremely important for the township to retain good volunteers since they help our department so much. In order to do that, the staff strives to cultivate an environment that is welcoming, friendly, and empowering to all. CAPRA wants to make sure that we have accommodations for anyone that may need them and that we can accommodate to them. The next piece is the volunteer background check. This is important so that we can provide the safest environment for the participants, other volunteers, and staff. All volunteers must get a background check if they are associated with children or any league. All volunteers who get a background check, they are good for a period of 5 years. And then if they are getting a background check through a different organization that they have already volunteered for, they must submit a disclosure statement stating that everything is correct and nothing has changed. The next way we have to comply with CAPRA is through volunteer operations, which is broken up into 4 different pieces: supervision, evaluation, recognition, and liability coverage. The Parks and Recreation Department will supervise all volunteers once they sign into the event. They will sign in so that we can record all the hours that are completed. We will be checking to make sure that all volunteers are acting appropriate since they are representation of the Park and Recreation Department. If they are not acting appropriate or representing us in an appropriate manner, they will be asked to leave the event immediately and their hours will not be logged. The next piece is volunteer evaluation. Volunteers will be evaluated on their hours fulfilled and the event and the program once it is complete. All volunteers will sign out before leaving the event and will receive a letter stating the hours that were completed that day. Staff will also log the completed hours into a sheet to keep track of each volunteer's hours and the time spent with the department so that we can honor them appropriately and recognize all the hard work they have given us, which brings us into volunteer recognition. CAPRA wants to make sure that we are recognizing all volunteers so that they know Parks and Recreation is thankful for the work that they are doing for us. The township honors all volunteers who complete hours with a Park and Recreation Department thank you letter that can be represented and presented to the individual's work, school, organization, or whatever they may need it for. Additionally, any volunteer who completes an outstanding number of hours will be invited to the annual Volunteer Appreciation Luncheon, which is scheduled to take off in December of 2022. Due to COVID, we feel it is appropriate to wait a year so that participants have a fair amount of time to get hours in and that more opportunities are happening. Additionally, any volunteer who volunteers over 50 hours will be rewarded with a special prize of the township's choosing that year. This is done to celebrate all of their hard work that they have given to the department and township. The last part is liability coverage. CAPR wants to make sure that all volunteers are covered under our document, and the volunteers are covered under the Section V of the Delaware Valley Property and Liability Trust Coverage document. Volunteers must also sign a waiver to submit that they have that we have their rights for their picture and voice release, and that we can use their pictures for anything of our publications that we may choose. Thank you, and I would like to open it up to any questions or comments.
First off, Elizabeth, I just want to recognize you on the job you did tonight, presenting and putting the materials together. So nice job.
Thank you.
I'm going to open it up to the members of the board. If anybody has any questions for Elizabeth regarding the materials that she presented, before I'll ask any questions, I wanted to open it up to Rob, Dennis, Kim, or Mike. Do you have anything specific?
I just thought you did a very nice job.
Thank you.
I'm just curious with the background check, is that have to be paid by the volunteer, or is there some kind of program if that's free, or do we cover that?
We would cover it if it's through the Park and Recreation Department. However, if it's done through our partners, they would handle that themselves.
Okay.
Since we're on the background check, one listed in here is specifically to working with children, right? Had we considered or thought about those that are in the extended volunteers, particularly those that are working with seniors, and again are on a longer committee? But they might be touching money and fundraising. So just what was your thoughts about extending that background check to individuals that are in those longer term commitments?
Doug, I think that'd have to be something that sorry, Elizabeth, but I think you have an answer for this. I think that's something that, we'd have to consider. It has to be township wide for all the committees, because there are a number of volunteer committees like this. Now, the seniors, they kind of run their own show. They don't require a background check now, but they'd have to decide that internally, I believe.
They don't require a background check for who? For
their board members.
Their board members. I'm thinking if, let's say, the youth committee wants to go in there, or like somebody's in there working with the seniors as a volunteer, like to come help them play card games or do arts and crafts things, and they're in there on a monthly, weekly basis. The way this is written wouldn't really address that. Like if I want to go in there and volunteer to say, hey, I'm going to teach them whatever, that's not really addressed here. As a volunteer going in, not necessarily the group and the board members there, but I'm thinking if we ask people to come in and help out the senior group.
The senior group does that internally. So they bring in their own internal, presenters. Now, if we bring in a presenter, we vet them, usually like a contractor, where there are some checks and measures, not necessarily background check for a presentation or something like that.
No, that I think I was really more about like they're in there like on a weekly. And again, I don't know if anybody actually does that for them, but that's kind of where my head was at on that. So.
Yeah, that'd have to be more of an internal senior thing. If that's something we want to require for them, like the leagues. I
think it was just more a protection thing, because they may not have thought of it in the past, and they are seniors, and just having somebody in there regularly, I think, would be a good thing for them. So just as it would for the leagues that, working with kids, the same goes for seniors. That's my 2 cents. especially if there's dealing with money, any of the organizations that might be dealing with money or, individuals on a regular basis. So, the only other question I had was with the volunteer retention, and you talked about creating this, I guess, an ongoing contact list, right? We don't have that today, Monica, right? At all, right? This would be something new.
We do have a contact list already, actually, of all of the people, the previous volunteers. So we do have, as part of our constant contact, we have a volunteer list for each year. So this is just something. The only real thing that would be new would be doing the luncheon at the end of the year for volunteers who would be invested, which would be like those long-term volunteers or maybe league heads who have really committed a significant amount of time. But that would be something that would be new. Everything else is stuff we do. It's just Elizabeth took everything and brought it all together and to make it make sense a little bit more versus doing things, I could say, loosey-goosey.
Now, does the CAPRA piece, this is really about volunteer management, but does this section talk about how many volunteer opportunities the township should be offering, or is that in a separate kind of like assessing what volunteer opportunities exist versus today versus that what don't exist or where there's gaps, right? Is that in a different section of CAPRA?
Elizabeth, you're the most familiar with the volunteer section, so I'm going to ask you that right now.
Everything that they need for volunteering is in this guide. They don't ask for a certain number of opportunities. It's just that we are fitting each person's needs.
Okay, so it's not about how many opportunities there are. It's just of the people that can volunteer. How do we retain and what they're okay?
Yes.
All right, great. So Monica, do we need to give an approval?
To be honest, for this section, it doesn't require an approval. Now, if the Park and Rec Board wants to approve it or put it before the Board of Supervisors, they can. But I'm just being completely open with you. This one does not require approval officially.
I just want to be consistent. Are we just going to wait until the whole CAPRA projects and then submit it all at once to the Board of Supervisors?
I actually think it might be better do it section by section, just so it's not overwhelming. It's going to be a lot at once. So if you want to do that, if you want to recommend it to the Board of Supervisors, and we can put it in for one of the next meetings to see if it fits into agenda, we can do that.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion to accept the volunteer management guide as drafted for presentation for approval by the Board of Supervisors?
I would make a motion.
All right. Do you have any seconds?
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor of the motion to present to the Board of Supervisors for their approval the Lower Makefield Township Park Recreation Volunteer Management Guide as presented today by Elizabeth? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Aye.
Thank you, Michael. All right, great. So Monica, we'll check this one off your list. Thank you. Elizabeth, again, thank you. A very nice job done putting this all together.
Thank you.
Great job.
Great job, Elizabeth.
All right, next on our agenda is, I don't want to mispronounce her last name, Monica, so I know it's Lisa's the first name. If you can.
Lisa Hutchler.
Hutchler.
Did I get it right, Lisa? Because I usually don't.
No, you didn't get it right. It's pronounced with a K, Huckler,
Hutchler, okay.
spelled with a CH.
That's
So
why I didn't pronounce
It's okay.
it, because I would have gotten it wrong. So
I thought I would try.
it's been butchered my entire life. Don't worry.
if you just want to state your name and address and.
Sure. My name is Lisa Huckler. I live at 524 Palmer Farm Drive, and I'm chairperson of the Disability Advisory Board. So, Monica, do you have the document to share? Because I think you had the last draft.
You know what? I'm going to hesitate to share it online,
Okay.
but they
That's
do
fine.
all have it.
Okay, they all have it.
Yeah,
All right,
they all have it.
okay.
Yeah.
So as you can see, Monica has worked very hard on this. I appreciate all her efforts in getting this accreditation process moving forward. It's great. I know it's a lot of work, so it's been a pleasure, working with Monica on this. So the ADA transition plan, we approached it. We first decided to come up with some priorities as far as what are we looking for in a park. And we came down with 1 through 5, with 1 being accessibility into the park. And I'll get into what the Disability Advisory Board did, but I just want to kind of go over just these 5 basic guidelines. And it's looking at barrier remover for parks and also facilities. And the number 1 is just accessibility into a park. If you can't get into a park or to a tennis court or, up to, there's a curb, you have to be able to get into the park from a sidewalk, from a bike path, from a street. So that's number 1. We need to make accessibility going into the park. Then priority number 2 would be once you're in that park, you want to make everything in there accessible. So if you're, say Kids Kingdom, you have your picnic area and your restroom. Are all those kind of interconnected so you can get from one to the other, making all the play areas accessible within the park? So you want to priority 1, getting into the park, and then priority 2 is within the park. Number 3 is, and just backing up, priority 1 also includes handicap parking, because you do want to be able to get from the parking lot to the park. Number 3 was simple, just restrooms. So making accessible restrooms. Number 4, we just drilled it down into, other things that are in parks, such as drinking fountains, grills, picnic tables, seating, park benches, concession stands, and things like that. And then the last one was providing goods and services. For instance, maybe providing a camp. And if you have a camp and it's usually held in one area that's not accessible, maybe you have to make it in another area. So it's more of events or programs that are going on there. So that you kind of do for both a park facility, outdoors, and even like the community center would be a facility. Apply the same standards, a little bit different information. So that was, what we kind of took, and the Disability Advisory Board went to each park and looked at, this 1 through 5, these guidelines that we're trying to identify, and kind of rated them and put it into an Excel spreadsheet. And that's what you have as one of the appendix. Once we did that, then we had to prioritize the actual park. So of all the facilities, I don't know, there must be 16 to 20 facilities that we looked at, which ones should we start first? What's highest priority? And we basically just took what's most used. You want to hit up the parks that are accessed by a lot of people, maybe public coming in. And so we prioritize by park, and we'll go through that in the Appendix B. So that's really, where we started from, just coming up with what we thought was important, the priorities for each park, and then by park. Now, if you look at the facility, we don't have to go through it. You guys can, kind of look at each specific park and the recommendations. And a lot of it's redundant as far as, making sure restrooms are, handicap accessible and all. But if we take, for instance, we'll take a, Memorial Park, that we make sure that we can get to Memorial Park. Now we took it further and said, okay, when you're parking in the parking lot, can you get down to the bleachers to watch a basketball game? And there is the bike path, the walking path that we have. So maybe we need to just take a little area from the walking path and make it accessible down to the bleachers. So you want to just think of where people might need to go and see if they can get there safely. We also took a look at, just where trash cans were located, and they need to be located within 2 feet of an accessible walkway. It doesn't do any good to have it in the middle of a grassy field, and it's more difficult to get to. We were talking about shade structures at the playground, and but we did prioritize those. So if you look at the Appendix B, within each one, you're going to see handicap parking would be item number 1. Relocating trash cans is priority 4, right? So that's not going to be as high level. Making accessible picnic tables, level 4. Accessible routes to the sports courts is level 2. And then maybe adding a pathway from the backside of the playground to the restroom, because that seems to be a new shortcut to the restrooms. So you just got to make sure that that's accessible for all to use, and that would be a priority number 2. So again, we took each park, and if you want to get into the really detail, then you want to look at the last appendix there. I don't know what appendix that is, that each member went through and kind of observed. So just to get into the specifics of what we were talking about. But I think
On page 22, Lisa.
page 22, yeah, I don't have that printed out. So I don't know if you have any questions on our process as far as, what we were looking at, but I think it's all laid out there of what the priorities 1 through 5 of what we were looking at. And then we did prioritize the parks. If you want to look at each, Makefield was priority 1, Memorial Park was priority 1, Kids Kingdom and the community area was priority 1 for, they get the most use. Memorial Park gets a lot of use from even out, with 9/11 Memorial happening there. So we want that to be priority. Because we can't do everything all at once, then we went down to the softball complex and, the baseball fields as priority number 2. Again, they're heavily used, but again, we couldn't do everything in 1 year.
Can I just add on to what Lisa's saying here? Lisa, I hope you don't mind.
No.
So there's 2 things that are required for CAPRA. There's an audit, which is that form that Lisa's telling you, where the Disability Advisory Board went into every park. And then there's the plan, which is going to be the year-by-year plan. So we're making decisions based on location, level of accessibility, and then budget, which is what we're still kind of working out how much each different thing will cost. So it's kind of like a 3-tiered thing. Can we afford it? Is it a priority, first priority, second priority? And that's how we'll be making decisions. There are some things that we are doing in 2021 that I identified already on the sheet that's in the Appendix B. So those are kind of like do out items. That's the plan per se. So you'll see the ADA action plan Appendix B. And then the document itself says how we make decisions and how we perform the audit. So for the future, that's how we're planning to make decisions. Essentially the idea is to create a plan based on action plan based on the plan and the audit. So you understand a little better. I have to say, as much work as this was, it was a fun process. You don't know what you don't know until you know it, right? So I learned some lessons from the Disability Advisory Board, which has been very interesting along the way. But I do think this is going to be a very valuable tool come budget season to determine some of the things, the priorities, and kind of check things off as year by year goes on, and continue to do this process every year or so just to check up and make sure that we're making things accessible. There is one recommendation in the plan that is something that, again, like Lisa said, you can't do everything all at one time, but the next go around, we'd really like to work on our programming and how we can make that more accessible. So now first facilities, but we'd like to make our program even more accessible too. So this has been, I have to say, a lot of work, but fun and interesting at the same time. And I hope that you guys can kind of see and learn some stuff from it too, to be honest. But again, if you have questions for Lisa or I, be glad to answer them.
Does it, I know you prioritize them based on the park, and then within the park based on the priority based on obviously the needs or projects. So Monica, I know sometimes from a cost efficiency standpoint, like if you're doing, I'm just going to pick something out, like ADA handicap parking and striping, and that typically is one across all the different parks where it's needed within each park. Does that, if a park is number 5 on the list and it's not number 1, would there be benefits to bundling the same, project, right, for cost, and say, hey, we're going to do all 5 parks and we're going to do all the striping at one time, because that's the way you would bid it out, I guess, right? So
to be honest, the striping is not a high budget item.
yeah, I just picked that one as an example.
It's more about location. So say paving is an issue, and if we're going to pave the pool area versus pave the Memorial Park, they're so far apart that set up like the cost difference, it should be 2 separate projects.
Okay.
They'd have to be kind of regional too. So we'd have to look at that too. But it's how much money can we allocate in the budget, and we'll have to take a look at costs. And I have Jim Majewski's working with me to help kind of come up with some cost estimates so we can kind of plan for this from year to year. So that's something to be filled in the appendix as we go.
And that's something that we wouldn't be able to help out with at all. So we're looking for Jim to do that. But, what you're saying as far as, you want to, if you can save costs, but things like trash cans and making the path to maybe a water fountain or the picnic benches, that's almost like an ongoing maintenance type thing too. So as the guys are in there and they can relocate something, we don't necessarily have to wait until we do the entire park for some of those small maintenance things. So maybe that's where you can, kind of check it off sooner than later, I guess, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think some of the striping stuff and the trash cans are definitely a 2021 project that we can get done. But moving forward, some of the paving, there's a lot more that goes into paving, like water's placement, all that. So much more that goes into it. But so it might cost a little bit more than you realize. But, it's definitely, if we're going to do paving at a park, we should be doing all the paving that we can at one time, mobilize one time. And then
what is the, I didn't see Cardinal on here. Is that ours, or is that the Cardinal Court?
I think they might have called it something else, actually, in the audit.
Okay. I know it has Revere and tennis.
What is that? Like
the Cardinal tennis courts.
Is it like the pocket parks type?
Yeah.
Revere.
Cardinal Drive. Well, it's not on Revere. It's on Cardinal Drive. I just didn't see it listed here because that one obviously is not accessible to anybody.
That one needs to be repaved. I believe it was mentioned in here. I just don't know what it was called.
It's not even accessible from the.
Monica, quick question. I know on it's page 11, they're talking about Memorial Park, and it says add shade structures to the playground.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what, we had the presentation from the Eagle Scout, was it last meeting or 2 meetings ago? Is that what you're talking about there?
I think we would need more than what an Eagle Scout could do, maybe expand on that project. Lisa can talk more about that. I don't think the Eagle Scout will be able to provide adequate shade.
Okay. I knew that was a project that was presented to us.
Yeah.
I guess we can say he's going to get the ball rolling on that, but there really needs to be a larger plan in place to cover more. A 10 by 10, 12 by 12, foot shade will cover 10 by 10, 12 by 12 area. And so I think we need a larger plan to get more areas, covered. So that needs to be in this, I think.
That's probably one of our bigger expense items. That and the Skylar tennis court area will be big line items.
And along the same lines, are there projects here that might be able to be done by volunteers or, Eagle Scout projects and stuff like that we can earmark so that when people are coming and asking, hey, can I help out? Or is there going to be like a checklist and maybe we can have that set aside to help do different things? Or
I'm not sure that an Eagle Scout would be able to do many of these projects.
Okay.
I think they're the shade structure is going to be a significant Boy Scout project. So I think that might be a little bit excessive.
Yeah, the things we're talking about are more structural and, they have to follow ADA guidelines and it's more, asphalt and a lot of manual labor, not just with your hands. It's going to take equipment to do a lot of this stuff.
I think Kim found the Skylar court.
Yeah, I was going to say the Cardinal courts are page 36 under community tennis courts. They say South Dove, but South Dove is Cardinal. So I think that's the ones you're referring to, Doug.
On page 36. Okay,
Yeah.
it's the
South Dove.
South Dove. Okay. Okay.
Do you want us to add that to?
Well, I mean, there's no parking, but I don't think you can get even to the tennis courts, right? You got to.
I think that was a line item too that we put at a ramp, if I remember correctly.
Oh, no. I don't see it on like the Appendix B is what I'm talking about. So if we need to add it to Appendix B.
I just don't know where South Dove is, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's the same neighborhood.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is great information and gives us a great start to plan the action that's required. Obviously, there's a lot of things on here, some that are low hanging fruit, but others that I'm assuming like getting the bathrooms ADA compliant is a major expense and time commitment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because that's almost at every facility, right?
Yes. Except for Memorial Park. Memorial Park is ADA compliant.
Okay, but you have pool, you have all the baseball, softball, Makefield, right? That's all.
Mm-hmm. Every other restroom.
Yep.
So I think Monica needs to just tell us the process as far as getting this in front of the Board of Supervisors. What you Parks and Rec has to do, what Disability Advisory Board has to do. So Monica.
If you guys are all okay with the plan and how we plan to make decision, you could recommend it to the Board of Supervisors. And then the Disability Advisory Board can then recommend it to the Board of Supervisors. I suggest that both boards review and recommend, and then they can put this in place. They'll have to vote it into place.
Can we recommend without having the projected costs and budget year?
I think we can because it's appendix, and that's something we'll be reviewing annually. But I would like to get that in sooner rather than later so we can start planning for 2022.
So we would make a motion, like I'm just talking about Disability Advisory Board, make a motion to approve the plan, knowing that it's a fluid, conversation about the cost and projected budget year.
Yeah, essentially you're just making a motion to approve the ADA transition plan.
Right.
And then the action plan itself is something that's going to be fluid all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. And that should be something up for review annually, the action plan.
And just from a logistics standpoint, Monica, if we approve this and then it should be up every year, does it come back to us? Does it just go with the ADA board, or is it a combo like it is right now?
I think it'd probably be more of a combo. It's going to go before everybody every year, both boards.
Makes sense.
I mean, it's in the parks, but it's a disability related item. So I think it'd have to go before both boards every year as we plan to budget.
Lisa, the ADA requirements, right? That is pretty consistent, right? Like, I don't know from a governmental perspective, like how often these are updated, and that would require obviously an amendment or change to the
Right.
plan. Something different comes out, right? You'd have to make adjustments, right?
Yeah, it's really not updated, annually. There's just more, townships are doing their own thing. They're doing more, they're going above and beyond what the ADA minimal standards are. So obviously we're following the minimum standards, but there are, if you look at the Appendix A, we took into consideration a lot of additional resources specific to Parks and Rec, and that's their standards. It's not really the ADA, government, their standards that have been approved. So, yeah, so I don't think it's going to change is what you're asking, on an annual basis,
The only thing that will change is the programming piece. I think that in the next year or so, we really need to approach what we're going to do about programming. I think that's something very solid that will change.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of ADA guidance on that per se, as far as programs, that the law came up with. But yeah, there's more guidance coming out on that from other standards like I'm talking about. So.
Well, if nobody else has any questions or comments for Lisa or Monica, then I guess we can.
I just had one quick question.
Sure.
There's nothing in here that is we need to have done like yesterday, or we're going to get, fined or anything like that. These are all part of our checklist and action plan, but there's nothing that we need to budget right away and get to the supervisor and say, if we don't do this, then, X is going to happen.
Yeah. The law mostly follows is if you are doing something, if you haven't touched something in a long time, it's just sitting there. You don't have to go and do it. But as soon as you are making enhancements like the pool and everything, then you should be taking care of that because you're doing an extensive project. Just like a historic home, public place, you don't have to make it ADA accessible unless you're, doing 50% renovations, the cost of the project. So you're not going to get fined, but somebody could make, a case if you provide a program and they can't get to it, or if you have a vaccination site and it's not accessible, that you could be fined for not providing it in a place that can accommodate. So you just wouldn't select a place that didn't have those accommodations for programs, is what Monica, we're talking about. So as long as you can make the adjustment and, facilitate whatever the program is, that's fine. But not because you have a pocket park that you can't get into right now. You're not going to be fined, But this is something that we want to do, so we don't have, and that's what our board is here for. So say someone does live in an area that they want to play tennis, they should come to our board, and that's the grievance policy that, Monica has outlined in here too. So if somebody came to us and had, just like up by ShopRite, someone was deaf that lived over in Tanglewood and they wanted to be able to cross to get over to the shopping center. You don't have to put that at every stop, intersection. You don't have to put a handicap, a sound, they were blind, so they needed a sound. So when it turned red, they knew when to cross. And so they reached out to us, and then we went to the township and we said, we need this for safety reasons, one of our residents, and we were able to get that done. So again, a lot of things you can't just go and do all at once, but if someone has a grievance or, a recommendation, I don't even like to call it a grievance, come to us, we will work with you in trying to make, whatever area accessible, whatever park, and that might move it up priority wise. So even though we've we've identified what we think is priority. You know, we're going to have to make changes if we need to on the fly.
Is it Doug? So, I mean, some of these, my general thought would be that some of these we should just either us or handicap board or maybe an email in combo. I mean, some of these, like, I'm thinking along baseball lines. I know that PAA, we have a spring cleanup where we're going to go over to the fields and we'll set up mounds and stuff. I can't see any reason why we couldn't easily make sure that the trash cans aren't 24 feet across. And then that's off this list with zero effort from anybody beyond moving a trash can that we're going to be filling up that day anyway, at most 2 feet to the curb. So, like, I mean, maybe that's an easy one because of baseball, and I know that baseball will be outside at the fields, but that would seem like I would think that some of these we could knock off pretty easy without any degree of effort beyond an email to the leagues themselves that use those fields.
And a lot of those, though, are like the trash cans that are more in the ground and not movable.
The bolted down.
So those are kind of the ones that we were talking about. That's going to be a little more effort. But you're right. I mean, anything that's portable is going to be easily, taken care of.
And this isn't a shot if it wasn't. But did you guys identify where those trash cans are that are bolted down that aren't? Okay.
No, we didn't get into that detail.
Do we know that every place where it says it has them? Meaning, is it an assumption that that there's a trash can at Makefield and at Memorial Park that is bolted down that's more than 2 feet away? Or was that actually visibly?
Yeah, I think we identified a couple specifics on a detailed plan, but I think after talking with Monica, we didn't feel like we had to identify each one. Yeah. Because you wanted a lot of these, even picnic tables, not every single table has to be accessible. Not every single trash can has to be within 2 feet. It has to be, throughout the parks. So there should be, a couple here, a couple there. We did, like I said, we didn't want to identify it because we want to look at it as a whole and make sure, at Memorial Park up at the north end, the new one, we have, accommodate some there, some picnic tables there, some under the pavilion, maybe some somewhere else. So it wasn't that specific.
Well, Mike, I can actually resolve this conversation. My staff, after this is something that we accept, I'm going to put that as a due out. We have to make sure there are so many. So I'll just make sure that the trash cans are placed as needed. That's a simple fix that we can say is a 2021 fix. So we can get that done on the list. That's complete.
Mike, I don't know why this came to mind, but it did, something that you said about the signs. It'd be awesome if we could put a sign in the bathroom of like a number that people could call if there's sort of like bathroom related, like if they need toilet paper or something like that. If there was a degree of either a number that they could call, text, or any sort of, I don't know where that came from, but or whatever. I thought.
Not really this discussion.
No, I know it's not related at all. It just came to my mind. I apologize. That makes sense though. I like that idea of the signs and I like the idea of having the staff go do that. So that's awesome. And I guess as a park rec board, our balance will then be come budget time. If we're decide to spend, say, $25,000 on one of the parks and then balancing out, are we spending that $25,000? Is any of that being spent on like ADA compliance? And that would be like our balance in trying to figure out projects that suit everybody and projects that suit ADA compliance and a combo of both.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think that's something to consider, Mike, but also there are other projects in the park that we might be able to partner up. Say, for instance, Makefield Park parking lot and some of the paths are going to have to be repaved with time. They're not looking great. They could use some repaving. So maybe we can do some of these paving line items as we're doing that project. It would save some cost as far as setup goes, and we can resolve two things at one time. Community parking lot, community park parking lot, is going to need repaving at some point in the near future. Same thing. Maybe we can address some of those line items at the same time to reduce the cost overall. So those are some things as the park board that we're going to have to look at too. Is there some project that we're working on within a park that we can pair with this project?
Are there grants available to get ADA compliant? I don't know. I'm asking the question. That's why.
There are many grants. And to be honest, we'll use this as part of our master plan. So as we're planning our master plan, we can put this in and that will help us get grants as part of bigger, broader projects too. So there are definitely opportunities.
All right. Are there any other questions from anybody? Comments? I think if everybody is okay with the ADA transition plan as written, if someone wants to make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the Lower Makefield Township Parks and Recreation ADA transition plan as presented tonight by Lisa Huckler.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Monica, this is approved. Lisa, I want to thank you and all the members of your team for putting all this information together. I'm sure it was not easy, but I think this will get us in a place that where we need to be, but also, as our mission, Monica's mission, that make this the best Parks and Rec department and facilities in the county and hopefully in the state. This will get us that much closer to it. So it will be welcome to all guests and participants. So.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
we-
you.
And again, if there's any opportunities future that you recognize and find opportunities, please make sure that Monica and the rest of the board are aware, and so that we can address those, as they come up. So.
Okay. And then we'll get it approved by our board on our next meeting. And then Monica, so when will it go to the Board of Supervisors? You still think the second week in April or when?
I'll give it to Suzanne as a recommendation and we'll see. We'll have to wait for your board to approve it, of course, too. And then she'll determine the schedule of when it goes.
When do they meet?
The second week in April.
They meet
The first and third Wednesday of the month.
So we could potentially do it if we meet prior to the first of next month. Would you want to do it that quickly?
Yeah, if you did that, we probably could ask to have it on the second meeting of the month. So the third Wednesday.
Oh, okay, the third. I was going to try to push it to get it to the first, but you think that'll be too soon?
Yeah, because they get their packets about a week. We have to give them
Okay.
information a week in advance.
Okay. All right. Then we'll plan on getting approved to beginning of next month.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Lisa.
All right. Thank you all very much. Okay.
Thanks, Lisa.
Monica, we have Steve ready. He's up next.
Actually, we have the programming events policy, unless you want to put that off until the next meeting.
Oh, I didn't see that. That's right. That's on there.
We can wait if you want to, because we're going to go over a number of policies. I'm waiting to put them all to the board at one time. So I do that to wait.
Let's move that to the next meeting.
Yep. No problem. I do believe Steve is on the line, or at least a representative of YMS. Can we bring them in?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hi, Michael.
Monica, it's Mike Hansen. Hey, how are you?
Hi, how are you, Mike?
I'm very good. Happy New Year. I don't think I've talked to you yet.
No.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for having me, or us. Yes, I know there was a preliminary meeting, Monica, with Steve and you and Jim about the fence, but I did want to brief everybody on what we're talking about. So we have a security fence around the turf field at Makefield Park. And, the fence has basically been in there mostly the original fence since it was installed. So, we're talking about 12 or 13 years now. So it was definitely showing signs of wear. And then when we were doing the snow removal recently, and we pushed a bunch of that heavy snow up against a section of the fence, kind of on the, northern side of the turf, several of the posts snapped. So we're definitely going to have to look at some repairs. In the short term, we're going to re-secure the broken posts by a temporary fencing means, so we'll get that fence back, in a operational status. But what we would like to do, and we'll be looking to secure a permit, is to replace the fence. And what I've been doing now is reaching out and contacting some fencing contractors to talk about ideas. And a couple of the ideas we've had would be either to replace the fence in its current location or potentially to move the fence off of the perimeter of the field to a certain degree to allow for some more space for spectators and potentially create like a little bit of a situation you might see at a high school football stadium, where there'd be kind of one fence that would secure the overall enclosure, but then people could go into like a secondary area and watch and not have an obstructed view. And we also are talking about the idea or conceptualizing the idea of making the exterior fence higher than it currently is, because we've been having a lot of issues with people that shouldn't be accessing the turf. And I know we've gone through some of those incidents with you, Monica, and we've also, met with the police department about that. So that's something we're considering as well. I don't think we have a firm plan, but what Steve wanted to do in terms of this discussion is to get any feedback, if we did undertake a project, get any feedback from the board about the project or other ideas, given what I mentioned.
Mike, I just wanted to let you know, I did share a picture of the fence that was broken with the snow. So it's on the screen now.
Okay. Honestly, I wasn't able to get the phone synced up to the video. So I'm just talking on the phone. I'm not looking at the Zoom screen or whatever. I couldn't get the timing wasn't right on my device.
Okay. So I'll tell everybody what we're looking at. So I'll try to talk you through it. So this is the side closest to the parking lot. And you can see that this fell down all along the way. And what Steve and Mike had been talking about is taking that fence and moving it outwards all the way around or on one side, whatever, so that there's room for bleachers inside and making it a taller fence. So there's less of the hopping of the fence or utilizing of the turf by other groups who are not authorized to use the turf field. So that's kind of what he was looking at, is actually expanding the space that's inside the fence.
And the north and south sides already have a higher fence. Is that correct? Or is it?
That is correct. Yes.
Right.
Because that would be where the soccer balls would fly when you're shooting. So
right.
They're higher. I don't think we'd be looking to go that high. Those are, I don't actually have the exact dimensions, but we'd be looking to go higher than the current fence on the long edges, which are about 4 feet high. We'd be, anyway, that's what I'm talking to vendors about now, which is, what's industry standard to deter access. And now, Monica, I did bring up the Facebook feed. So one thing I do want to point out is you can see that in front of the fence, between the fence and that tree that's in the foreground, there is a little bit of a depression, and that's basically a drainage feature that surrounds the turf more or less. So we do realize that if we do something different in terms of increasing the perimeter of the fence, we're going to have to take the drainage patterns into account. So we're aware of that, and that's something we're going to be talking to the contractors about. And obviously, if we make a submittal, we'll touch on how that's going to be addressed, if it is.
And as you consider expanding the perimeter of the fence, as I'm looking at this picture, so let's assume that you move this out. I don't know what the dimensions are. If it's 10 feet, and then you decide to put bleachers in there, would you have to pave anything, or are you just going to leave it as an impervious surface with grass as it is there, or you expect maybe potentially other changes that would be necessary?
Well, I would say we were talking about that because, yes, what if it gets muddy and gross in there? That would be problematic. I don't think we would want to pave it or put any concrete or impervious surface. So maybe we're looking at, I was talking to someone else on the board, John Brunette, who does a lot of landscaping activities. So, maybe some gravel, or there's even these, it's hard to describe, but they're like a concrete type of block that has a lot of open space. So it does allow percolation and it does allow grass to grow, but it gives the overall area some kind of structural rigidity. But that's a hypothetical at this point. But I don't think we'd be looking to pave it and incur that expense on this project.
Can I assume that you would replicate it on both the east and west side? So if whatever you did in this picture this would be, I guess, the west side, and the east side creep into whatever field that is on the other side, and maybe not, only because kind of our custom is, or the custom for soccer is that the spectators stay on one side of the field and the benches and the coaches and the players stay on the other side. So we would probably not set up any active spectator locations on the far side, the east side, where and it's just custom for whatever reason on the field, I guess probably because it's closest to the bathrooms, is that the player benches and the players and the coaches tend to be on the east side, and then the spectators more align themselves on the west side along the fence that's currently collapsed. So not necessarily make it a modification on the far side, on the east side, other than possibly making the fence higher, because we still have the access issue. Okay.
Mike, who issues the permits for the fence?
I would assume we go just to normal building department, but I wasn't at the meeting with Jim, so I didn't ask that question.
Just one other thought. Back when we did the field initially, the idea of keeping the fence lower was such that spectators could actually look with an unimpeded view at the game without having to be inside. So, I mean, raising a fence or putting a higher fence and requiring spectators to be inside would, I think, naturally deter some fans from viewing it from the outside with that unobstructed view. So just a consideration for you guys. But originally, that was when it was conceived. It was intentionally left lower just to allow spectator viewing with an unimpeded view.
And I'd say I want to be clear, we're not committed to the higher fence. We're evaluating it, but and I don't know if the uptick in incidents of unauthorized people using the field and the kind of some distasteful interaction we've had between said people and our employees. I don't know if that's a result of the global pandemic, and hopefully everyone will be more well adjusted in late 2021 and 2022. But, and in addition, just kind of the health and safety, many other people using the turf takes life out of the turf. And, we invested heavily in that. And, and in it, one last thing is, that we have goals and other equipment, and people that don't pay for it absolutely take advantage of it and damage that equipment on a regular basis. So we've got a lot of issues with the access. Certainly the spectators is something we're considering though in this overall analysis.
Are the gates locked? So let's say you put up a higher fence, but are the gates open or locked?
Right now, the gates are not locked because people could just hop the fence. If we're talking about a higher fence, we were talking about kind of a different style of gate, probably something that you would have to unlock from the outside, and then it would have a like the panic bar type of release mechanism on the inside. So if you're inside, you didn't need to unlock it, but you would have to unlock it to come in. Yes.
Kind of like the dog park.
I've not been to the dog park, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
So today,
You're on mute, Doug.
yeah, so today you're just, obviously because they could either jump the fence but the gates aren't locked anyway. So,
Yeah.
So it's either way.
I gotta believe that unless you put Conadino wire on the top, people are gonna jump the fence if it's 4 feet or 8 feet or 10 feet. If they want to get out there or figure out some clever way to use a coat hanger to open the gate for themselves. So, I just to consider.
Well, and if we could at least make it a deterrent, yes. The fence contractor I talked to today said once you get over 8 feet, someone is on mute again, I think. Once you get over 8 feet, if people really want to get in, they're just going to cut the fence. So we're never going to be able to have 100% compliance. It is more making it a better situation for us potentially. Again, we're not 100% there yet on the height.
If you're not, two questions. One, if you're not expecting to put seating on the east side, would you still be expanding out to the east side, or no? Would you keep that where it is so you don't have to dig into playing space?
Unclear, but I would think we would not expand on the east side.
And then are the bleachers, would you expect those to be more of a permanent nature bleacher or the movable ones?
I think we would start with reuse, possibly of the bleachers that are already there, which I guess technically are movable, but moving it is quite a chore. But I think if we were talking about a capital project, this would be expensive enough that I don't think we would invest in new seating at the same time we would be repairing the fence. Yeah.
Do we need approval or anything, Doug? Or is this just discussion?
I think it's just discussion. I don't think we would prove anything until they actually come in front of us with their recommendation, right? So at this point, right, I think we've asked questions, provided some feedback and input based on experience, Dennis's experience, and just kind of getting an understanding. But I think until they have identified materials and true sketches on what they want to do, then I don't think at this point, Monica, correct me if I'm wrong, is there anything that we need to do, right?
I think it might be a little too soon to make a recommendation.
Yeah. I think once, Michael, you get your costs, what type of materials and dimensions, and final kind of preliminary sketches, then definitely encourage you to come back and share with the board.
Okay.
I mean, is this I assume this is I don't know what timing you were thinking of. Is this a fall project or summer or sooner?
Probably sooner, but I mean, I think, look, if I have to get a little bit more information. We have to assess it. We have to approve it internally inside YMS. If we take it and show it to you, we discuss it more, and then we go draw a permit. I think we're doing construction in May at the earliest. So then maybe we just wait to the summer But I wouldn't think the fall. I would think we would want to pull the trigger on it, before the big fall season, then kind of brainstorming a conceptual schedule.
Doug, I mean, I know for Steve, when I was talking to him, he did want to move along with this project because it is a broken fence sitting on the side of the field.
Sure.
But I just, hearing where we're at with Mike today, I just don't think they're far enough along. That would be my recommendation, is to hold off.
Yeah, I mean, if our next meeting is in 4 weeks, Mike, so I mean, if that would give you, we'd be early April, and then if approval and then your permits, that would be able, I would assume, timing wise, that would get you to May.
Yeah, that sounds right. So we'll be prepared to have a more detailed presentation next meeting, and perhaps, Monica, what I'll try to do is make sure we get some materials out ahead of time, so you can circulate it to the board members and they can assess it, so that way we can be efficient in our discourse.
Yeah, that sounds good, Michael.
If I could just add to that, like for me personally, in terms of approving it, with you guys not necessarily making all of your decisions before that meeting, things I would care about would be, are you going to change the actual look of the fence? Meaning, are you going to go from I know what that fence looks like now, or are you going to go from that to a different style of fence? If that's going to happen, that would be something I would definitely want to know. And then any playing space that would be taken by an expansion. Those would be two things I would very much want to know. So I guess even if you don't have finalized, if you haven't picked your vendor, so to speak, but that all the vendors are giving you the same style of fence, that would be the sort of thing where I personally would be comfortable, potentially approving and letting Monica, and giving Monica the power to do what she does best in sort of finalizing these projects. So that would be my personal guidance for you in terms of if you want to seek approval next meeting, the things that I think we probably care about the most.
Got it. I wrote that down.
Hey, Michael, I would also just consider any other options other than, a fence is, a capital project for you guys. It's kind of a structure that is permanent to that extent. And I just don't know if there's other options that you guys have talked about that could serve you better, perhaps, in terms of eliminating I think the biggest concern is the misuse of the field, like whether it's cameras or something, and signage, whatever. But I just, if I were you, I would consider extra fencing and bigger fencing as a last resort, to be honest with you. But I just don't know how exhaustive it is, how exhaustive your options have been.
We've had a lot of discussions. I mean, there are cameras at the park. I don't know, what the monitoring frequency and the response are. And, we've brought this issue to the attention of the police. And I'm going to be quite honest. Their response to us hasn't been super satisfactory. And I know Monica's been briefed on that, so I'm not going to go into details. So, we have thought about this, and yeah, we're not super interested in spending $50,000 to $75,000 to do this, but we certainly have to make repairs. And then if we're going to make repairs, I think Monica, you brought up the thing before about one mobilization. So if you're going to have to make repairs, then maybe we need to make facility upgrades potentially. But I hear you.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions for Mike? Michael, did you have something?
Do they need approval if they want to make repairs, like minor repairs between now and May? Do they need approval for that, or?
If it were minor repairs and they were keeping the fence as is, there would be no issue. It's just changing the structure that really needs to be approved.
So they were just going to replace the fence as is, right? Or
Yeah, it would just be replacing the fence.
Right. Okay.
All right. Just want to make sure we didn't leave them hanging.
All right, Michael. So I appreciate you coming on and giving us an update as to the status and what you guys are thinking. And yeah, just get the materials to Monica as soon as you can. She'll get that out to us and we can provide any feedback and hopefully we can get this thing moving along so that you can guys make a decision and get that fence corrected.
Will do. Thank you all.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, have a good night.
Take care.
Monica, do we have any other liaisons on?
Yes, Noel is in the room already.
Noel, welcome. Happy New Year. We haven't seen you. And
Hello, how are you guys?
we're
Good.
good. We've got, I guess, you're on the phone, so you're not, I guess, in the Zoom meeting, correct? So.
Yeah, so I'm watching you all, and it's interesting because I'm trying to time, what's being said on the phone with the video, and it's really fun and interesting. And I could tell when Mike I wrote that down, and Monica smiled how far behind everything was. So
It's like a disc jockey. He's gonna say, turn off your radio when you're talking. So
yeah, exactly. I learned my lesson the last time, but I was contemplating as we were going through this meeting exactly a year ago when I provided my update on our increased numbers for registration. I also had to provide an update on how we were canceling our in-person membership meeting for that coming Thursday because of what has become the COVID situation. And then I haven't seen you all since then in person. So glad to be reporting again this year that we actually do have very strong numbers, and we are planning as normal as possible regular spring season. Despite everything that is going on, we are pretty consistent with our numbers compared to 2019. So down to what we would have expected in 2020. We're actually up in softball, driven by really strong numbers in our 6U and 8U divisions. And then also down slightly on the baseball side in the 10 to 12 year old range, but also happy to report that we've seen a rejuvenation of our 13 to 15-year-old program. So we do have travel teams now at every age group that we can have, from the 2 7U developmental teams up through 13, 14, and 15U travel teams. So I know you'll be happy about that, Doug. We are also gearing up for a lot of field maintenance, but learned our lesson with batting cage nets a couple of years ago when all our batting cages were destroyed from heavy snow. So we're waiting as long as possible for batting cage nets. But you'll likely see some teams practicing this week on all of our township permitted fields and school fields. And we will continue to operate in our approved green phase guidelines. And we'll, start the season with those guidelines in place as well. But that's really it over here.
thank you for the update, Noel. Your registration's still open though, right? It's not.
Registration has closed. So we close registration on February 15th, normally in a regular season. And in certain divisions, it is a hard close. We have been accepting registrations literally up until today, but mostly on an outreach basis. We keep the younger age groups open a couple weeks past February 15th, but with evaluations and drafts at many of the older ages, those do close. But for 6U, 8U softball, T-ball, and AA, we have been able to keep those open. We're also managing our uniform inventory from last year. So we bought all our uniforms for last year. So they've been sitting in the Fields Printwear warehouse this whole year. So we're managing that, but certainly with some down numbers on the baseball side, we should be good on uniforms this year.
Okay, great. Well, we're excited that people are getting back on the fields. I know you guys did a nice job, adjusting and being flexible and getting kids out once Monica opened up the fields and the state and the county allowed kids to play. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody back out on the fields. And
yeah, we are grateful for the partnership of the Parks and Rec Board and especially Monica, and also all of the other leagues. We partnered with, Morrisville and us had some cross play at the older boys age groups or the baseball age groups last summer. And we're also working on some cross play in 12U softball and also our Babe Ruth division. So we are trying to make it work for everybody as much as possible, but it doesn't work without a lot of collaboration and sacrifice and just a lot of effort. So we appreciate it.
No, it takes a lot, and I appreciate all the volunteers and the parents, sticking to the guidelines and the requirements. I know it's not easy, especially we got all the kids running around and different opinions, and everybody just wanting to, get their kids.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I've been commissioner for it'll be 2 years in July, and we haven't even had a regular season yet with all of this. So it's been a great learning experience for us all on how to, interact and deal with those varying opinions on a monthly, daily basis. So
Michael's smiling. Yeah, well, it's a distraction. Instead of having parents complaining about their kids doing this or that, they complain about something.
Yeah, I never thought I would wish for normal season complaining, but I'm looking forward to it.
Monica, I know separately from this, but I know the county is supposed to give us an update when, at the end of March? Is it end of March?
Yeah, there's a whole long discussion on that. I'll do during my manager's report on that.
It kind of came to my head in terms of they're planning green, and then what's the next phase and what that might be.
We have our coaches meeting on Thursday, and our plan is, like I said, to just go into it with what's already been approved, and we'll evaluate it as the season goes on. We also, even if things are completely lifted, we have many concerned families. So we still, if everything was lifted, would likely still continue to operate under green phase rules just for the safety of our families and to, help with some of the angst that we likely will be getting from it too.
No, you raise a good point, because I was going to bring that up, because I imagine, as with everybody else, some people are lifting everything, but people are still being very cautious in terms of how they approach their day-to-day, whether it's businesses, leagues, etc. So.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, anybody have any questions for Noelle while she's here, Michael?
Hey, Noelle, Magic registration still open too, right?
Yep, Magic registration is still open. And in fact, it's the highest that we've seen it in the past 3 years. So we're at 24 kids, and we'll keep that open really through the season too. My brother played a couple years ago. He lives out in Norristown, and he came out for just one weekend. So we got him registered in T-shirt. So that will keep open.
Monica, would it be possible, and I know multiple leagues do it, so that I'm not necessarily playing favorite to PAA or anything, but would it be possible to maybe do an explicit post from the LMT Park and Rec page about those specific offerings, the extra league offerings, not just for your typical sport league, but for the extra leagues?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I see that as an umbrella offering, that meets some of that disability advisory board recommendations too. Yeah. So I think that'd be a nice add, and I'd be glad to do that for both PAA and YMS. No problem.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm. But Noelle, if you could just send me the information, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll have Shane write it. It'll sound prettier.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. Anybody else have anything for Noelle?
No.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Noelle.
Thank you, Noel.
Yep, bye.
All right, Monica, I'm going to turn it over to you to cover your director's report.
Okay, so this came up a couple of times, so I just want to make sure to address it. As normal as we want this year to be, we're going to try our very best to offer as many things as possible. The pool, we are opening, and we're going through a timeline that we discussed as far as opening goes. We're going to open all of the bathrooms this year. The reason we'll be able to do that is we are bringing on 3 new maintenance staff, so we'll be up to 5. But we are still not going to bring on the normal summer hires. So it's going to be tight shifts around here, keeping up with mowing, keeping up with the pool opening, keeping up with some of the things as we start to open up. And that definitely impacts us as we try to open too. So, but we feel we can open the bathrooms, and I'm planning to do that this year. So we have the pools opening. We're looking at having a very, very small summer camp, which we plan to post the information on that this week. We're looking at some mini camps with some outside organizations coming to offer them, one of them being a skateboard camp where they come run it out of a parking lot. They bring a couple little ramps and stuff and go over it with the kids to kind of introduce that, because there has been a need for that in this community and a lot of expressed interest. So that's something that we're possibly interested in doing. A lot of those other programs we're bringing in contractors. As far as the seniors, we're getting a lot of questions about the seniors coming back, particularly now that people are getting vaccinated. I'm not sure. I'm kind of trying to think a timeline of midsummer where we start doing some things that are less contact and we slowly phase the seniors back into the facility. But I'd like to keep an eye on the numbers. Doug, you asked about the county. The county was supposed to give us some more information mid-March. Now I've heard some rumors and whisperings about maybe April, so early April. I hope that comes out soon. But what did happen this last week is PRPS, the Pennsylvania Park and Recreation Society, put out some guidelines for us to follow. Not much has changed, just a little here and there. So we're using those as we start to look forward to implementing some of our summer programs. But really, everything kind of has to remain fluid. Like you expressed earlier, Doug, is, CDC is starting to loosen some masking guidelines for those who have been vaccinated. And I know there are going to start to be questions about our programs. I think for this summer, it's safe to say that masking will be a requirement, particularly because our staff are not even going to be eligible to get vaccinations anytime soon. And then some of the younger participants who can't have vaccinations, I just don't feel like we're there yet. So we're going to stick with masking through the summer as we continue to offer programs, just to make sure that our staff feel comfortable and that people who are using our programs feel comfortable. And maybe next summer, when we're a little further along, that might change. But I don't anticipate that we're going to change masking rules this summer. So with that being said, that's kind of a COVID reopening update. Pool information, I included in your packets that same simple, I pulled reports, not a final report, but it is a little report to show you what it's like on closing day for the discount period. Discount period closed last Friday at 4 p.m. Just wanted to give you a little bit of trends analysis. You can see we're not too far off normal numbers, to be honest. So, that's not bad. We're doing better than projected. So I'd like to, just bring that to your attention so you could take a look. 2019, 2020, 2021 reports, all on closing day of discount period. So you could kind of get a look at that. If anybody has any questions on that, I'd be glad to answer them.
That 2020 was what prior to basically shutdown. So last year at this time, right?
Last year we closed discount period a week before shutdown, and then no one registered after that.
So it was a hard, clean cutoff. So
yeah, it was. So it was a week, 1 week before shutdown, and so it was but people did start to get a little nervous and people stopped registering, I would say, a few weeks before that. So it really slowed down. It wasn't a normal rush. And 2019 would be kind of more a better indicator of what a normal year would look like.
So we're still behind last year and then kind of
Pretty far behind.
behind 2019.
Yeah.
Did you get a lot of feedback? Because I know you did your pool meeting, I know, and then you see a lot of like registrations after that. I don't know how many people were.
We had a little burst right after the meeting of registrations. And then we had a very big burst. I mean, very significant last week, right before it was very significant all at once. So that really did boost us quite a bit. So we'll have a second meeting on May 10th. And hopefully people feel more comfortable with that'll be how we're going to start. Whatever we're presenting on May 10th is kind of what the plan will be. So people can have a better understanding of what it'll look like.
I have what may be a stupid question, but how have people been notified that the pool is reopening? Was it just like an email to current members? Were there any like automated phone calls? I just feel like just in conversations with people locally in the township, when the topic of the pool comes up, it seems like a lot of people don't know that the pool is going to be opening. And I'm just wondering what like awareness could be. I mean, I know there's these meetings and social media, but I just feel like a lot of people still don't realize it.
There have been a lot of social media, these meetings. It's been in the paper, many different papers, 3 or 4 to 5 different times. It's been, I mean, we've kind of put it everywhere.
Yeah, no, I know that.
But email through our community desk. We've done mass email through our constant contact. We've been doing I mean, I don't really know.
I wonder if people are just like tuning it out or something, you know, like it seems like people they're asking, but then it's like, well, you've been notified, but they just don't realize they've been notified, or they just kind of, they overlook it.
I think it's lack of belief, just as a result of so many things being like, kind of yanked away last minute or changed for so many things that it becomes, oh, great, I know you're opening the pool, but are you actually opening the pool? So
maybe that's
like
more.
You have a plan to open the pool, but are you actually opening the pool? And what does that look like? And the fact that we don't have those answers yet leads to the assumption that the pool's not opening. It's probably
That's a good point.
Some hesitation to believe it, I believe. I think some people just aren't accepting that it is. I'd be glad to open up even more marketing. We did do paid advertisements in the paper and on the web and all different things. But, if you have some other recommendation, I'd be glad.
There any kind of signage or like a banner, saying like opening? I haven't been down there, so I haven't noticed.
Our normal banner is not up yet. So we can get that up too. So I
also think with the snow on the ground, I'm sorry, I was just going to say with all the snow, it's like you don't see your usual baseball signs you usually see around now. You don't see the Keller Williams signs that you would typically see these days. I wonder if that plays into it also, just the unique time of year.
But interesting enough, I was looking at your numbers, Monica. The seniors, which are the ones that are obviously most, at risk, right? Their memberships are actually increased.
Because they got vaccinated, so they're like, "Let's go to the pool."
Party! I don't know. Are they get vaccinated? Or like we need to get out of the house for finally, and
Yeah.
But it's I mean, it's hard to tell whether these are. Obviously, it's families right now that haven't committed. So either they've, they're making other arrangements, or they're just, non-committal at the point. So.
Yeah, I do believe there's some hesitation, whether it's nervousness or they just don't want to get excited yet.
Well, I know you promised them like you can cancel up until right before it's opening and get your money back. So I guess either, and then it might be just people that are still, economically disadvantaged, and they maybe don't have. They're not spending the money yet until they, so.
Yeah, but it's going to be hard to determine how this will trend. So I think we just need to kind of keep an eye on it and and see if anybody has any recommendations for additional advertisement. I'll take it.
If you get the banner up sooner as opposed to later, I feel like that at least people see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as they're driving through town. It actually might be a good idea to put one on the fence of the pool, just for opening.
Yeah.
Definitely close to the road, as people say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
good idea.
So we'll keep adding, we'll keep plugging along, but
Maybe even just more posts showing pictures of things like as progress is made on Sly. You know what I mean? Something that's as simple as like, lock came off the door. You know how social media is, like the lock comes off the door to get into the pool. Like, that's significant, right?
I actually took pictures today I could share.
Yeah. So to me, anything like that shows like action and activity taking place at the pool probably furthers that discussion. I had a COVID related question for you. If we had no further guidance for the next month, let's just say from where we are today, would the leagues be able to begin under their current green? You know what I mean? Like, so Noel said, like, if we were playing baseball today, we'd be starting under our green phase guidelines that have been approved. So is that like, are we good with that today? Like, can you play baseball right now under the existing guidelines?
You can. Essentially what the guidance is you could do what you did last summer right now.
Cool.
What we're waiting for is some of the other fine tuning. With the pool, there's a lot more fine tuning than with the leagues. Whether we could do hands-on lessons, whether we could have, different types of activities or events, whether we can have a swim meet or not, whether we, there's so many things that are outlined that make it hard. How many people can swim in a lap lane? It's just like so many things. So we're just waiting for some of that to see if any of it has loosened since last year. Even chemicals, the chemical ranges are very high last year. Normally we'd keep chlorine, and I could have this wrong by just a part per million or so, but about 3 parts per million. Last year the recommendation was like 8 to 10 parts per million. So that's a lot more chemicals we're going to have to plan for. So it's just things like that. We need to know what those recommendations are in order for us to make some good decisions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis, did you have a comment or a question?
I was just going to make an off-the-record comment, like when Brody was talking about posting things that are happening around the pool that we could kind of generate excitement. We could say Brody got a new Speedo or something.
Oh boy!
Don't put that out by the road.
Don't do that. Please
put that on his own social media.
Yeah, keep that off the record.
Sounds like a personal thing. Oh boy. So if you guys are okay with it, I'll move on to the master plan.
No, let's stick with that one. Let's talk about that one. That sounds great. That's not embarrassing at all. Master plan would be phenomenal.
Right now we just posted the master plan, the advertisement. I did send it to the Bucks County Planning Commission and AM Tool. But if anybody else has a planner that they know that would like to take a stab at giving us some quotes, that'd be great. Our request for proposal is on the website, and the closing date for that, I believe, is the 2nd of April. And I'm hoping that we could get it on to the first week of April with April 7th board supervisor meeting. So, and then we can get started and get rolling with that. But that's really it. And we're just trucking along on this CAPRA accreditation, slowly but surely getting there.
Checking the boxes.
Yeah, checking the boxes.
All right. Is that it, Monica?
That's it for me.
All right, great. Does anybody else have anything else? Bring up non-agenda items? Anybody else?
I was just curious, Monica, the bike path and more curiously, the crossing light on Oxford Valley and roll-offs. Is that for this year?
This year.
Is that still, that's still at least today at this point still in progress or whatever?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Very good. Cool.
Unless something has changed.
Yeah. Very good. So
Yeah.
in theory, you would expect that somebody, be it board, somebody in the township will be hearing about that. I would assume something will be coming up soon about that, right?
I imagine. I think there were some right-of-way issues we're working on.
And do we still have another approval of that project?
The budget or the project?
No, like plans. Yeah, like approval of that.
I don't think so. I think that we had, it's down the line now at this point. We're just at the final. I can take a look at where we're at and come back to you on that, wrap back around.
Cool. And then nothing else from me, Doug.
I know the last meeting, I know, Michael, you brought it up, but I didn't know, Monica, if you followed up with the leagues. It was about Park and Rec representation at their monthly meetings. I know there's still probably virtual meetings, but I'm just following up because that was in the last meeting's meeting notes.
I apologize. I did miss that.
That's okay. That's why
Write myself a note.
we'll bring it up for next meeting when you get a chance. That was something that was on my follow-up list.
Mhm.
So if there is nothing else, if anybody wants to make a motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
any seconds?
Second.
All right. That is with that, we will close the month we're in March meeting of the Park and Rec Board. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great week.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, all. Thanks, Monica.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.